You almost scrolled past this. You've done it before. Some headline appears claiming a dollar powder kills an entire ant colony overnight, and your brain does what it's been trained to do. It files it under clickbait, rolls its eyes, and moves on. That reflex is reasonable. The internet has earned your skepticism 1,000 times over. But here's the thing that stopped me cold when I actually looked past the headline and into the research. What if the exaggeration is just a wrapper around something genuinely true? What if there really is a powder sitting inside almost every grocery store in America right now, costing less than a cup of coffee, that carries enough biological firepower to dismantle a civilization of 500,000 insects from the inside out? Not in 24 hours, not by magic, but systematically, scientifically, provably. Today on Hidden Hacks, we are going somewhere unexpected. From the scorching salt flats of 19th century Death Valley to the quiet shelves of your laundry room, where a piece of forgotten practical knowledge is waiting to be remembered. Here is what this episode is actually going to give you. The real, verified science of how a cheap mineral completely dismantles an ant colony, not by attacking the workers you can see, but by targeting the queen herself. Why this knowledge quietly faded from everyday American life. And the answer is not a conspiracy. It is something far more mundane and in some ways far more interesting. The exact research-backed method to permanently eliminate an ant infestation using $4 and a technique that professional entomologists actually validate. And the historical story of the remarkable people who first dragged this mineral out of one of the most brutal landscapes on Earth. Stay with me. It is 1881. Picture a landscape that feels like the surface of another planet. Death Valley, California. Summer temperatures that regularly push past 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot enough to fry an egg on a rock. Hot enough to kill an unprepared person within hours. There is almost no water. There is almost no shade. The air itself sits on you like a physical weight. And pressed into a rough stone shelter against a desert hillside, a prospector named Aaron Winters and his wife Rosie are surviving by pure stubbornness. Not struggling, surviving. These are people living on the absolute outer edge of human endurance, and they have been here long enough that the desert has started to feel almost normal. One night, a wandering stranger named Henry Spiller staggers out of the darkness and into their camp. As they sit around the fire, he starts describing a strange white mineral he has seen being pulled out of dry lake beds in Nevada. Crystals that look exactly like scattered cotton, highly valuable, the railroad's desperate for it. Aaron Winters goes very quiet, because he has seen those exact crystals scattered across the marshes near his camp for years. That same night, driven by the specific electricity of desperate hope, Aaron scrapes some of the white powder into a tin pan, adds alcohol and sulfuric acid, and holds a flame beneath it. He and Rosie watch in complete silence. Then a bright, unmistakable, brilliant green flame appears in the dark. That green burn is an ancient field test for one specific mineral, borax, a substance that had been traveling the Silk Road for centuries, prized across Central Asia and Tibet, long before a single American prospector knew its name. Aaron reportedly grabbed Rosie's hand and said simply, "She burns green, Rosie. We are rich." They had just found white gold in a desert that had taken everything else from them. Discovery was only the beginning. Within months, a San Francisco businessman named William Tell Coleman acquired the mineral rights and constructed the Harmony Borax Works right there in that furnace of a valley. The nearest railroad sat 165 miles away across terrain that would challenge a modern off-road vehicle, let alone anything from the 1880s. The question of how to move thousands of tons of refined white powder across a literal killing ground before the automobile existed is where this story becomes something else entirely. Coleman commissioned massive custom-built wagons, each designed to carry 10 tons of refined borax. To pull them, he assembled teams of 18 mules and 2 draft horses, the legendary 20 Mule Team, fully loaded with 2 wagons and a 1,200-gallon water tank trailing behind. The entire rig weighed over 36 tons being dragged through desert heat, across rocky terrain, with no road, in temperatures that would hospitalize a modern person within a few hours. The teams covered 17 miles a day. The round trip took 20 days. From 1883 to 1889, 6 straight years, those teams hauled 20 million pounds of borax out of that valley, without losing a single animal to the heat. Hold that image for a moment. The sheer grinding human and animal determination of that operation, because it matters to what comes next. By the late 1800s, Borax had arrived in American homes. The 20 Mule Team brand became one of the most recognized trademarks in the country, appearing in laundry soap, cleaning products, and eventually on kitchen shelves across the nation. But there was one specific use of Borax that never appeared in any official manual. It was passed down quietly, from grandmother to daughter, mother to daughter again, like a piece of household knowledge too practical and too useful to let disappear. Pest control. Grandmothers across America understood something through observation and repetition that would take research institutions decades to formally confirm. If ants appeared, you did not panic. You walked to the laundry room, measured out a spoonful of borax, mixed it with sugar, set it near the ant trails, and waited. It was cheap, elegant, and consistent enough that by 1948 the EPA officially registered boric acid products as pesticides in the United States. By 1993, there were 189 federally registered pesticides containing borax on the EPA registry. The grandmothers had figured out the core principle empirically, a century before the peer-reviewed literature caught up, which raises a question that is worth sitting with. If this solution has been documented, registered, and quietly effective for over a century, why do the vast majority of homeowners today immediately reach for the phone to call a professional exterminator the moment ants appear? That is not a paranoid question. It is actually a fascinating economics question with a very clean answer. Ants represent the #1 pest problem in American homes. Scientists estimate there are approximately 20 quadrillion individual ants living on this planet right now. A single professional exterminator visit for a serious infestation runs between $150 and $300, with carpenter ant infestations reaching up to $1,400. The business model of most pest control companies is built around quarterly service agreements for $100 to $500 annually, ongoing for as long as you own your home. Over a decade, you are potentially looking at $5,000 spent on a problem your great-grandmother solved for pocket change. Here is the economic reality underneath that. You cannot build a profitable recurring business around a product that a customer only needs to buy once, costs $4, and cannot be patented because it comes directly out of the ground. Borax is a naturally occurring mineral. No corporation can own it. No brand can manufacture dependency around it. There is no recurring revenue model. So there is no financial incentive to spend millions marketing it to you. The folk knowledge did not disappear because anyone suppressed it. It faded because no one was being paid to keep repeating it. That is a quieter kind of erasure, and in many ways a more interesting one. Now let's get into the actual science, because this is where it gets genuinely extraordinary. An ant colony is not a group of insects. Biologists call it a superorganism, a collective entity functioning with one distributed intelligence spread across thousands of individual bodies. A typical household infestation can involve anywhere from 10,000 to 500,000 workers, all coordinating through chemical signals called pheromones. When you spray a commercial insecticide at the ants crossing your kitchen counter, you are doing something real. You are killing the foragers you can see. But those surface workers represent less than 5% of the actual colony. Deep underground, completely untouched, the queen continues laying thousands of eggs every single day. You are trimming branches from a tree with very deep roots. Borax works differently. It works like a Trojan horse. When you mix borax with a sweet attractant, the foraging worker ant finds it, consumes it, and, this is the crucial part, does not die immediately. Borax is a slow-acting stomach poison. It disrupts the ant's digestive metabolism at the cellular level, causing fatal internal dehydration. But this process takes 24 to 48 hours, which means the poisoned worker has time to do precisely what its biology compels it to do: carry the food home. Once back inside the nest, the worker participates in what scientists call trophallaxis, the mouth-to-mouth food sharing that holds every ant colony on Earth together. The contaminated material passes directly to other workers, to developing larvae, and eventually to the queen herself. The colony's greatest evolutionary strength, its extraordinary efficiency at distributing resources, becomes its fatal vulnerability. As more foragers collect the bait and lay down pheromone trails, they actively recruit additional workers to the source. The contamination accelerates. It reaches the queen. Her reproductive system fails. The workers begin dying off. The larvae starve. The entire superorganism collapses from the center outward. Research published in peer-reviewed entomology journals confirms that a properly formulated borax bait achieves complete colony eradication in 3 to 8 weeks for most common household ant species. Before the practical instructions, let's address the mythology directly, because this topic has accumulated a spectacular amount of internet nonsense. Is borax banned in 12 states? No, that claim is completely false. There is no record of borax being banned for pest control use in any U.S. state, and the EPA has repeatedly registered and approved boric acid-based products. The myth likely traces back to legitimate regulatory conversations in other contexts. California and the European Union have placed restrictions on borax in cosmetics because of concerns about reproductive health effects from prolonged, high-concentration skin exposure. As a household pest control tool used as directed, it is fully legal and available at your local grocery store right now. Does the method work in exactly 24 hours? No, and if it did, it would actually be less effective. The entire mechanism depends on the workers surviving long enough to carry the poison back to the colony. Speed is not the goal. Distribution is. And is borax completely safe because it is natural? This requires an honest answer. Natural does not mean harmless. The EPA classifies borax as a Category 3 toxicity substance, significantly less dangerous than the synthetic neurotoxins used in most professional treatments, but not something to handle carelessly. Keep bait placements away from pets and small children. Use enclosed stations like bottle caps or shallow lids positioned behind appliances and inside cabinets. Treat this the way your grandmother did. She knew it worked, and she also knew it was not candy. The recipe itself is simple. Find 20 Mule Team borax in the laundry aisle of any grocery store, roughly $4, a box that will last you years. Combine 1 tablespoon of borax with 3 tablespoons of white granulated sugar. This ratio is not arbitrary. University of California entomology research identifies this as the optimal concentration, enough borax to be lethal to the colony, low enough that workers do not detect and reject the bait before carrying it home. Add a 1/4 cup of warm water. Stir until dissolved into a thin syrup. Saturate cotton balls in the mixture and place them on small pieces of wax paper or inside shallow caps along the ant trails you have identified. And then comes the rule that breaks every instinct you have. Do not kill the ants you see. Those foragers are your delivery system. Letting them work is what ends the colony. Refresh the bait every few days as it dries out. Within a week, workers will appear scattered and disoriented. Within 3 to 8 weeks, the colony collapses completely. If your sweet bait goes untouched after 48 hours, your colony may be in a protein-seeking phase. Switch to 1 teaspoon of borax thoroughly mixed into 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. If this channel has ever given you something that made you feel like genuinely useful, forgotten knowledge still exists and is worth finding, consider subscribing to Hidden Hacks and sharing this with someone who is still writing quarterly checks to an exterminator for a problem that has had a $4 solution for over a century. There are situations where a professional is the right answer. Structural damage from carpenter ants nesting inside walls. Any termite situation whatsoever. Multi-species infestations of real complexity. If you have persistent doubt about placement safety around children or pets, the professional route is the responsible choice, and that is worth saying plainly. The goal has never been to argue that expertise has no value. The goal is to help you understand the difference between a problem that genuinely requires a specialist and a problem your great-grandmother solved every spring with a spoonful of laundry powder. Aaron and Rosie Winters did not have a laboratory. They had curiosity, necessity, and a willingness to act on what they observed. That green flame in the dark told them something real about the physical world that no institution had handed them. The grandmothers who figured out the ant solution were not entomologists. They were careful observers who paid attention, verified through repetition, and passed it down. The ants in your kitchen are the same ants they have always been. The borax is the same mineral hauled out of Death Valley by 20 mules more than 140 years ago. The biology has not changed. The chemistry has not changed. The only thing that changed is who is getting paid to remind you. Now you know.